Gas. That was the military sign for incoming gas that was used in military terms in war conflict. Uh, Now, what I'm going to be talking about today, chemical warfare did a lot of terrible things to the human body that cannot be explained by some multiple scientists during the time. It was very terrible for everybody involved into the party. It was terrible making it. It was terrible producing it, stockpiling it. All nations stockpiled multiple uses of chemical warfare, which did a great deal to everybody during the time. Chemical warfare impacts how my life because when I was little, I was involved into a car accident, and airbags they contain this chemical that when they expand or when they go off, they burn the human skin because of how rapidly they expand, releasing so much energy out into the environment that protects you from smashing your head through the windshield or flying out of the cars, per se. Um, Chemical war through international conflict was one of the most devastating uses. Uh, in like say, we're gonna start with World War One. World War One chemical use was very terrible. In World War One, they used multiple types of gases to advance their allied push, so to speak, such as chlorine gas, phosphine gas, or the more common one, easily produced one, is mustard gas. Mustard gas is a form of asphyxiation towards the human body that did not go very well for anyone involved. That's when my history began, starting basically with chemical warfare or anything chemicals to begin with. They're not they're not user friendly products. That's for sure. Um, yeah, but that starts the main point of the argument. Chemical warfare was just absolutely horrible for in toward World War One. Now, mustard gas played a bigger role in World War Two, specifically used by the Germans. Unfortunately, the receiving end of this would be the Jewish people that were living in Germany at the time. At the time, the Germans believed that the Jewish would overtake Germany and become like the most dominant world power they were. So Adolf Hitler, when in command at the time, decided to get exterminate the Jewish was the final plan to destroy everyone. Now the way they did this was that concentration camps were used, but how they exterminated them, as one would say, is they used mustard gas. Mustard gas would asphyxiate the human body and cause skin burns and terrible rashes. It destroyed your immune and digestional system. It basically killed you from inside out, and that's absolutely horrible to say, but that's the truth. How that worked, and everyone involved, it didn't go well for either sides. Now, going on from that point, there was a advancement in chemical uses from World War II to another terrible world conflict would be the Vietnam War. In the Vietnam War, they used a more deadly chemical agent, two of them, in fact. It was Agent Orange. Agent Orange was, they called it Agent Orange because they usually came in orange barrels, and these were not necessarily damaging the human body, but it damaged the forestry and crops around in the Vietnam land at the time. Um, uh, let's see. It destroyed crops and herbivores or herbivorous forestry. and because of that, like major forests were destroyed, just absolutely leveled to ground level, so that the Allies, which were mainly consisted of South Korea and the United States, that they could see enemies in plain sight, and that's the reason for that. Now to continue, it got worse from there. Napalm was another major agent for that as well, and then uh, that was also it caused more forest fires, and the whole thing was terrible. Now, present day, uh, the Geneva Control is what was implemented to stop the spread of chemical warfare throughout all war conflicts. And so chemical warfare now is no longer used predominantly to kill each other, but more to control crowds. And so, say like the police use tear gas to control crowds and riots. And so, chemical warfare is now on a much more smaller scale than it was from World War One. That's why you would think of it as an advancement of chemicals instead of, say, for the worse, because back then it really was for the worse. And that's just why I think that chemical warfare, um, throughout World War One, World War Two, Vietnam War, and present day, um, it provides insecurity in multiple people. And that is now my topic on chemical warfare.